Carolyn. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. If you didn't already know, September is PCOS Awareness Month, so I thought today I would share with you part of my journey with PCOS, from getting diagnosed to overcoming infertility and now doing my very best to manage my PCOS naturally. So if you have PCOS or know someone who does and you think they'd enjoy this video, please make sure to share it with them. And also stay tuned all the way to the end of this video because I have a very important and exciting announcement about the direction that my channel is going to be taking and the future content that I will be creating. So if you aren't familiar with what PCOS is, it's a metabolic syndrome, and you can get diagnosed by having 2 out of the 3 diagnostic criteria. So the first one is having irregular or infrequent periods. The second is having polycystic appearance of your ovaries. So in order to know that, you would have to see a doctor and get an ultrasound. And then the third way is having hyperandrogenism. And what that means is you have an excess of male hormones such as testosterone. So you can either learn that by getting some blood work done, or you can also show physical symptoms of hyperandrogenism, like having hormonal type acne, excessive hair growth on your face or body, a loss of hair like from your head, an increase in weight especially in your belly. So those are all signs. So even if you have normal blood work, if you show those types of symptoms, then you can still be diagnosed with hyperandrogenism, and that can be part of your diagnosis to learning that you have PCOS. So I was diagnosed when I was 29 years old. However, I feel like I have had PCOS since my early teenage years. From the very beginning of puberty, when I started getting a cycle, it was always very infrequent and irregular. I'm talking it would only happen 2 to 4 times per year. And I always thought that this was like the best thing in the world. I saw my friends suffering every month with their cramps and PMS, and I thought that I was the luckiest girl in the world that I only had to deal with that a few times per year. And it wasn't until I was either 18 or 19 when I first went to a gynecologist that I ever told my doctor about this. And I'm not sure if maybe she thought I had PCOS or not. I didn't have the medical knowledge that I do now, but either way, she did run some blood work, and she told me that all of my blood work came back normal. So I believe that that is one of my barriers to not getting a diagnosis for the next 10 years, is that particular doctor telling me that my blood work was normal. Because ever since that point in time, whenever I saw a new doctor, I moved around, I went to college, I moved to New York, and I saw a multitude of doctors over the next decade, and every time they would ask me about my periods, the date of my last period, if they were regular, I would always tell them, no, I've had irregular periods my entire life. I got blood work done and it was normal. So I feel like me saying that to these doctors already kind of like brushed it off to the side, and none of them ever took the time to really look into what is going on, because having a period only 2 to 4 times a year is never normal. It's just not. It needs to be investigated. You need to find out what is going on. There is definitely a hormonal imbalance. If you've been having a cycle for more than 2 years and it is still irregular, that is just not normal. So unfortunately, none of my doctors over the next decade ever looked into it. I never heard the term PCOS in my life until, again, a decade later when I was 29 years old. That's when I finally got diagnosed. So in my mid-20s, I got married. I was on the birth control pill. Fast forward several years, my husband and I decided it was time to start trying to expand our family, and I started trying to conceive. So I came off the birth control pill, hoping that, over the last couple years, everything just kind of like worked itself out. But unfortunately, that was just not the case. My cycle never returned to how it should be, and I was going months without a period. And as you can probably imagine, that makes it very difficult to try and conceive, because if you're not getting a period, that means that you're not ovulating and you can't get pregnant. So I went to my gynecologist and I told her what was happening. And the first thing that she told me was that I should probably start taking metformin because that would start to regulate my periods. And I was so confused because I'm a nurse. I know what metformin is. I've been giving it out to my patients with diabetes for years, and I had no idea why taking a diabetes medication would help me with my periods. But she obviously was thinking in the back of her head that I probably had PCOS. And so looking back now, that's really upsetting that she knew that's what was going on. And I'd been seeing her for probably more than 5 years, and she'd never mentioned it to me before because I was on the birth control pill. So she tells me that I should probably start taking this medication, but since it's really more of like an endocrine metabolic disorder, I should probably go see an endocrinologist to get like a full workup. But at this point, we've been trying to conceive for a while. I didn't want to like waste any more time, so I just skipped right over that endocrinologist and I made an appointment to see a reproductive endocrinologist. So if this is something that is going on in your life that you feel like you need answers, like feel free to advocate for yourself and get an appointment with the doctor that you need to see. So I wanted to get pregnant. I had like at this point in time an idea that I probably had PCOS. I was looking into it, doing my own research, and I decided a reproductive endocrinologist is what I really needed to see if I wanted help getting pregnant specifically. So I went to go see this doctor. Unfortunately, she was easily able to diagnose me with PCOS. I had a pelvic ultrasound showing polycystic ovaries. She obviously knew I had a history of irregular periods, and my lab work definitely showed that my sex hormones were like all out of whack, my testosterone and my estrogen and all the other ones that they measured. So I met all 3 diagnostic criteria, which was no surprise because I definitely have all the classic symptoms of PCOS. Like I definitely gain weight in my midsection. My arms and my legs are actually quite thin, but I hold all of my weight in my abdomen. I have been suffering with hormonal acne for the better part of my 20s, which is really frustrating because throughout my teenage years, I didn't really have much issues with acne. I would have like a breakout here and there, but they would respond to like over-the-counter acne treatments. But I feel like once I got into my mid to late 20s, my hormonal acne really got out of control and it just did not respond to anything at all. I wouldn't really say that I lose hair from my scalp because I have a ton of hair, but I definitely showed some classic signs of hyperandrogenism, and that was definitely apparent through my blood work as well. So I got diagnosed with PCOS. My doctor knew I wanted to get pregnant, so right away she started me on a treatment program of inducing my period and starting with me on a medication called letrozole to help me ovulate. And unfortunately, it took several months. I had to go up all the way to the highest possible dose, but I was able to get pregnant the following spring. So I got diagnosed in December. I got pregnant, I believe, the beginning of April, and I had my son Jacob that next December. So it was very comforting to me that I knew that I could get pregnant. I know women with PCOS are often told that they'll have struggles with infertility. Sometimes doctors tell them that they're not going to be able to have children, which is just so upsetting to a woman to be told that. Fortunately, I was never told that. I did realize it would be a bit more difficult, which proved to be true, but I was able to successfully conceive and have my son. And at least I knew in the back of my head, if I had trouble conceiving in the future, that I could go back to my reproductive endocrinologist and hopefully have the same success. So at this point, I am about 7 or 8 weeks pregnant, and I am ready to be discharged from my reproductive endocrinologist and graduate and go back to my OB, who would manage me for the rest of my pregnancy. However, I knew that my PCOS journey wasn't over at this point just because I got pregnant. I had been doing a ton of research. I'm a nurse, so I was like very interested in what this diagnosis was going to mean for me long term, and I kept hearing all these crazy things. Well, not crazy, but all of these really scary things that can happen when you have PCOS. You can become pre-diabetic or diabetic, you can develop uterine cancer, and you can have all sorts of long-term complications, fatty liver, that I definitely wanted to avoid. So before I got discharged from my reproductive endocrinologist, I asked her what I should do after I am, you know, not pregnant anymore. Once I have my son, what am I supposed to do to manage my PCOS? And what she told me was that all I had to do was take birth control. That birth control would take care of everything. It would give me a cycle every month, and that's all I needed to do. And I left there with so many mixed emotions, because I was so happy to be pregnant, but I was so upset because I didn't want to take birth control for the rest of my life. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to find a way to manage my PCOS naturally, to live a healthy life, hopefully without taking a hormonal medication every single day. That just left me feeling really dejected. So I luckily had a very good pregnancy, delivered my son, and now I am postpartum, and I'm already thinking ahead to what is going to happen when I want to get pregnant again. I don't want to go through these, you know, fertility treatments in the future. I really want to try and manage my PCOS so I can conceive naturally next time. Going through fertility treatments, if you have ever done it before, it is extremely emotional. It is so hard to go into that doctor's office and have them tell you that the medication isn't working, that you need a higher dosage, that your body is not responding. You just feel like a failure as a woman, especially when it doesn't work, when you don't get pregnant right away. It's just so stressful, not to mention it's expensive as well. So that was a very difficult time in my life. I probably only told like 2 or 3 people that I was even going through it, because it was just such a difficult thing to talk about. It was extremely emotional. I'm actually getting emotional right now just thinking about it 5 years later. So I definitely did not want to go through that again. So I started diving into the depths of the internet, trying to find research on what I could do to manage my PCOS. And probably the most common things that I found were that I needed to lose weight. Losing 10% of my body weight could help improve and regulate my cycles. So that was something that I was like, okay, I have to lose weight. I have to lose weight. The next most common thing that I found was that I had to eat low carb. So that was a big lifestyle adjustment for me. I'd never eaten low carb in my life, but everything that I was seeing online was that I had to lose weight and I had to eat low carb. So those were the things that I really focused on for the next probably year when I was trying to get my PCOS under control and get pregnant naturally. Another thing that I saw was you can take some certain supplements to manage your PCOS, one of them being Ovasitol. I highly recommend this supplement. I'll talk about it in a future video probably, but I started taking that. I'll leave a picture of it here on the screen. But between trying to exercise, trying to lose weight, eat low carb, and taking Ovasitol, fortunately, I was able to naturally conceive my daughter pretty soon after we started trying. So that was just the best feeling in the world, knowing that I could actually do something to manage my PCOS, and it was obviously working because I was able to conceive my daughter without any fertility treatments, and that was just the best feeling in the world. So after I gave birth to my daughter and I was in my postpartum period, I really wanted to do everything that I had been doing before to try and keep my PCOS in check. That was losing weight, eating low carb, exercising. So I started doing all sorts of different workouts. I joined the Beachbody community so that I could work out from home. I was doing HIIT workouts. I was doing kickboxing. I was trying to run, do cardio, all these things that I thought would be super helpful to help me lose weight. I was measuring my food in these little containers, trying to like limit my carbs and make all these substitutions to eat low carb and try and not eat low carb. And it was just a mess. It was a nightmare. To this point in time, I have barely lost more than 10 pounds over the past 2 years of trying to lose weight and eat low carb. It has just been a very difficult journey for me. Telling a woman with PCOS to lose weight is just not, it's just not good advice because it is so difficult for us to lose weight. What I have learned over the past 3 months of doing some really thorough scientific research is that women with PCOS have a hard time losing weight for a reason. It is not our fault. It's not. we have hormonal imbalances in our body that make it near impossible to lose weight like everyone else does. We have, most of us, like at least 70% of us, have some level of insulin resistance. So that means we have excess insulin in our bloodstream because our cells are not able to use it to burn our food for energy. That excess insulin in our body tells our brains that we need to eat because that insulin isn't bringing sugar into our cells. So our cells think that we're starving, our brain thinks that we're hungry, and we have these insane cravings for food that we just cannot resist. It's biological. It is so difficult to control these cravings. I speak from experience. Like, I would get these cravings not even an hour after I had a full meal, and I couldn't understand why I was so hungry all the time. And now it makes sense. It is my insulin resistance. The excess insulin in my body is telling my brain that I am hungry and that I need to eat. Also, PCOS suppresses the hormone leptin. Leptin is the hormone that tells our brains that we're full. So if our insulin is telling our brains are hungry and then we eat, our leptin is suppressed, which is telling our brains that we're not full and we need to continue to eat. So as you can see, these hormonal imbalances make it very difficult to eat a meal and feel fully satisfied until your next meal. So there are a lot of different natural remedies that you can use to help get your hormones back in balance. I'm going to be talking about them in future videos. This is not the only PCOS video that I'm going to be doing in this series, and that sort of brings me into what my important announcement about the future of my content is I am completely restructuring my channel and getting it sort of away from the motherhood lifestyle type of content and sort of my cooking content being all over the place, and I'm going to be focusing my content for at least the near future on PCOS specific content. So talking about how to properly exercise for PCOS, how to eat properly for PCOS, what supplements I'm taking, how I am managing my hormones. And I'm going to be taking you along on this journey because the first step in me personally managing my PCOS is giving up gluten and dairy. Those are both major triggers for altering your hormone balances with PCOS. I have been gluten and dairy free for probably the last 6 to 7 weeks. It is a big lifestyle change that I am excited to be sharing with you. If you are just starting out on your PCOS journey, it can feel very intimidating for someone to tell you you have to make all these different lifestyle changes. So I invite you to come along on this journey with me, and I'm going to be talking about all things PCOS and managing them in my life. So I invite you to come along. I hope that you will stick with me on this journey, and if you don't, then that's completely fine with me. I completely understand that this is a very specific topic that only a small percentage are going to be interested in. However, PCOS is extremely prevalent in the United States. It's estimated that between 5 and 10% of women actually have PCOS. So I know I am not alone, and I know that a lot of people out there are getting misinformation from their doctors telling them that they need to be on birth control or take metformin, and that's the only thing that they need to do to manage their PCOS, and that is just not the truth. We really want to get to the root cause, manage our PCOS naturally so that we don't have to take these hormonal medications for the rest of our life. So I'm going to see you next week. I'm going to be talking about a PCOS friendly grocery haul, everything that I am getting from Trader Joe's, one of my favorite stores that is both gluten and dairy free. So I invite you to come back next Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I'll hopefully see you then.